Welcome back inside the Now Morning Show. We continue conversation this morning. We're talking about 16 days of activism. The TTPS stands in solidarity with victims of gender-based violence. And this morning, I want to welcome Head of the Special Victims Department at the TTPS, Superintendent Michelle Rowley-Powder. Good morning to you, ma'am.
Good morning.
How are you doing this morning?
I'm fine.
You see you come out full in orange to make sure we know you're supporting. Don't you? Lipstick and all orange. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. You have more orange than me. But tell me, what does the 16 days of activism mean to the TTPS in terms of standing in solidarity?
Okay. Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago. Thanks for having me. So, at the Special Victims Department, one of the units under my command is the gender-based violence unit. And the 16 days of activism started on the 25th of November and will end tomorrow on the 10th of December. Yeah. The theme this year is Unite to End Violence Against Women and Girls. And what we have been doing over the 16 days is outreach. Instead of victims coming to us with a report, we have decided to go out to them. Community engagement is where we are focusing. We are asking the community to come forward and make reports. We are encouraging reporting, and that is where our main focus is in these 16 days. You do not have to be a victim of domestic violence to make a report. Make a report on behalf of a neighbor, make a report on behalf of a friend or a relative. You may have incidents happening even next door, even down the road, even with a relative. And we are asking Trinidad and Tobago to make it a collective responsibility, make domestic violence a collective responsibility. Be responsible for what's happening in your neighborhood. A lot of times when reports come to the police or when information comes to the police, during an investigation we realize that the victim of domestic violence may have suffered for a very long time before the information has even come to the police. And there are times when people know. A lot of times people even close to you may know and decide they wouldn't meddle in intimate partner.
In man and woman thing.
Yeah. And it's a challenge we have been seeing. It is not a big secret. Our investigations normally reveal that someone, even close to the victim, has known for a while. Sometimes victims suffer for months, even years, at the hands of their abusers.
Superintendent, if I may, because one of the things you said there, of course, is no secret, right? And for some, they may say that this is a big ask to go on reports on behalf of somebody who you may know or you may not know, specifically because there are times when you see a report is made, something does happen, and then we see the cycle repeat itself. There is also the fear that if you do go and make a report, that it could come back to you, and you could somehow end up a part of the entire situation. So how do you treat with that, ensuring that you have security for the person who is making the report, that it's not going to follow back?
All right, so we are encouraging persons to report anonymously. We do not wish to know who is making this report. We just need the information. We want to intercept these incidents before they turn to these domestic murders. A lot of time, these murders happen because there was activity a very long time. Things were happening for a while. And maybe if we had intercepted it earlier, we could have saved her life. Do not reveal who you are. Just give the information to the police.
But in a circumstance, Superintendent, where, for example, if my friend came to me in confidence and said, you know, I having this problem or whatever the case is, and she didn't tell anybody else, she told me alone, and I go and I make an anonymous report to the police, and boom, the police now show up to investigate the situation, she's going to know that it was me. You understand what I mean? So how do we mitigate against
we are
that?
looking at whether you breach, and we're looking at which is the better of the evils.
Exactly,
Right.
Exactly, because this person came to you in confidence, because they may say, well, you know, the same thing we've heard many times over again, where they might say, well, you know, this might be temporary, it will stop, it will, I want to make the relationship work or whatever the case is, but I'm confiding in you as my friend to get some sort of support from you as a friend. But if my support now leads the police to come and knock down the door, which could lead to whatever else afterwards. Because if, for example, because I know of situations where the police reach and the victim is denying that they are a victim, what happens in that case? What does the TTPS do in that case?
All right. So the victim is a lot of times hesitant because of fear.
Of course.
All right. So we have a team from our victim and witness support unit who would work along with them in that other instance. We want to say at this point that bringing the information to us is not the wrong decision. It is never the wrong decision. The police has a job to do, and we must do what we have to do. But there are systems in place to support the victims even along this walk.
And you said there are systems in place to support the victims. One of the things that I have experienced, and I'm sure many watching have experienced as well, is there is a fear, not necessarily just because this may be the head of the household, for want of a better expression, but this person may be, let's say, well known, may even be like within the ranks themselves in the service. So there is a fear when it comes to reporting because it may come back to them. What is in place to give that perhaps extra layer of protection if necessary?
Yes, the extra layer of protection. I hear you. And I spoke earlier about the victim and witness support, who is there not just to support victims, but also support witnesses, all right, in these matters. We have a system in place where, how do you call it? Counseling takes place.
Right.
There's confidential information is passed on, and discussion takes place. We follow up on each victim, each witness, to ensure that comfort is there, and we take care of what is being done.
Right. But what happens in the case where I come and say, guys, I want to make an anonymous report. I heard, I know that this person is being, they're being beaten at home. And we hear it, the whole neighborhood could hear it, everybody know. And the police come and knock on the door, and the victim says, no, I'm not a victim. I cool, I normal. How does the TTPS treat with that situation?
All right, so then we see that victim is fearful. All right, that victim is fearful to cooperate with the police. We have had recently instances where the victim did not give the full participation, and that matter is before the court. All right.
As in the victim is the person.
The victim did not give the statement that we needed,
right.
the information that we needed. We had other information, like we had the CCTV information, we had coverage, we had other witnesses who saw.
Right.
And that matter engaged UDPP in Supt, and that matter is presently before the court.
Okay.
And we are moving in the direction where we anticipate that victims are fearful, we can still prosecute.
Okay.
And that is where we intend to continue heading.
Okay.
To protect victims who are fearful.
So one of the things that that just came into the conversation is actually being in court and going through the process in a domestic violence case. Are there any perhaps levels of protection that are offered to those who we say are presumed victims? Because of course innocence until proven guilty. In a case like that where the person who is the perpetrator may be out on bail or whatever it is there are there protection orders and that sort of things that can be afforded to the victims to ensure as it's going on they're not at risk?
Yes, well, the victim has they have the privilege of going to the court and getting that protection order.
Okay.
All right, even while that matter is going on. And the police have a power of arrest. If that order is breached, then that person, that respondent could be arrested immediately.
Immediately. And what other lines of protection or systems are there in place to support the victim during that time?
Well, victim, as we spoke about our victim and witness support team, all right? So they play an extensive role in victims of crime generally throughout the TTPS.
Okay.
Superintendent, do you all have enough of the resources needed to be able to facilitate that? I don't know what the numbers are like in terms of how many cases are reported, how many victims that the department is dealing with on a regular basis. Do you feel like you're resourced enough, you have enough therapists, you have access to enough support systems to facilitate the people who need it?
We never have enough. But we are working with what we have, and we are trying our best, to make TNT safe. Yeah, we are really making some effort. What we have observed, though, is for our comparative period last year, all right, we have noticed last year we had somewhere around 3,012 reports, and this year we have somewhere 2,318 reports. So we have a reduction in almost 800, somewhere around 800 less reports as regards domestic violence. We have seen a bit of a decline. We are not.
Is that a good thing?
Yeah.
Yes, we are not celebrating yet because we really need to flatten the curve.
Yeah.
However, the decline, we believe, is attributed to that sensitization drive that we are continuously on.
Okay. But shouldn't the drive be getting more complaints rather than less?
No, when we see a reduction, it means that there's a change in behavior.
Okay.
We believe that there's a change in behavior. What we have done over the past 16 days is ramped up our efforts to educate the public. We have been doing outreach programs in Grandy. We did one in South. We had Port of Spain and Northeastern. So each day, one of the teams went out doing either a walk or some bit of community engagement to encourage members of the public to look out for each other.
What was the feedback when you go on these walks, when people engage with the TTPS about domestic violence? What's the feedback like?
There are times we hear about people who have been victims for a very long time, and there is some fear in coming forward and making a report. So we are asking members of the public to report on behalf so that we can get these victims comfortable and safe once again.
Okay. Superintendent, one of the things you would have just mentioned would have been the statistics. Out of these statistics, what are the main forms of violence you see happening? I mean, you've mentioned murders. We know there's, of course, like assault, battery, that sort of thing. But what else falls under this sphere of gender-based violence?
All right. So our team focuses mostly on intimate partner violence.
Okay.
And we see the assaults topping the charts. Yeah, this assault this hitting between man and woman kind of disagreement.
Are we able to report things like financial and emotional and that sort of thing as well, abuse?
Well, we don't cater. It's not catered for. It's kind of hard to prove. It's harder to prove these type of abuse. So we focus more on the physical.
And from your experience, what age groups do you see being victims? Is there one age group that you tend to see more than the other?
No, it is prevalent throughout a lot of the age groups. Mostly the let's say middle, like 30s, 40s, that kind of thing.
I know that we're focused specifically on standing with women and girls on the 16 days of activism. But I'm also curious as to, do you get reports about men being victims of domestic violence?
I would like to, and we always encourage men to come forward if they are victims of abuse, because the systems that are in place are not just for women, they're also there for men.
But it's only if you're being physically abused?
Yes, generally.
Right.
And maybe our emphasis may seem to be a lot on the women and girls, because our statistics in our department, we are seeing 97% of the victims of abuse are women. So maybe that's why it may seem as though we are focusing more. Yeah, but that is where our
And trending-wise, do you see, is it comparative, men and women coming forward, or are we still in this space where men are far less likely to come forward than women when it comes to gender?
They're mostly women coming forward.
Yeah. And now, of course, we know this is the 16 days of gender-based activism, violence rather, when it comes to women. But what about focusing on men in the future? Is this something you could see happening as well with the TTPS, where you have that campaign out there supporting it?
Yes, and we want to encourage men, and we will encourage our men to make a report. The facilities are there for you also.
And when you say facilities, we're also speaking about those same lines of support that we would have mentioned with women, even when it comes to like protection orders, counselling, that sort of thing as well.
Counselling.
All right. So, Superintendent, our customer inspector. Superintendent, before we wrap this morning, as we are about to exit the 16 days of activism and head into the Christmas season, any advice that you want to give the nation when it comes to domestic violence, when it comes to any sort of gender-based violence like that, as we get into this season? Any awareness you want to bring or anything like that?
So, our focus is to encourage reporting. We can act when we have the information. I would like to say you do not have to be a victim to make a report. Make a report on behalf of someone so we can probably stop what could turn out to be a potential murder. Right? Make a report, let the police get involved, and collectively let us deal with domestic violence.
Well, all right.
Yeah. Collectively, I like that, specifically collectively, as you said that, because there's always going to be a bit of hesitancy if you're not involved, you don't know the person that well, especially given the things that we have to undo within ourselves and as our community. But Superintendent, thank you so much for joining us this morning. All the best to you, your division, and everybody in your family for the Christmas season 2025. Superintendent Michelle.
2024,
2024. I'm jumping ahead of time,
why.
that is for sure. Superintendent Michelle Rowley-Powder, head of the Special Victims Department of the TTPS, with us this morning. Stay tuned because your birthdays are coming up after this break.
Love and peace.